everybody, and welcome back to Monza for qualifying for the second race of the weekend for the International GT Open. As you can see, we've got ideal track conditions really for qualifying. 25-degree track temperatures, air temperature just creeping up to 20 degrees as the sun rises over Monza. The cars glinting in the sunlight as they head out to the track for the first time today. We ride on board with the Honda NSX, which is competing in the championship for the first time this weekend. Esteban Guerrieri will be qualifying the car today. It was Bertrand Baguette yesterday. Of course, all the cars shared by two drivers, and the drivers who did the qualifying session yesterday and started the race will swap over, and their other drivers will do the qualifying today and also start the first stint of today's race, which will be coming up at 2:15 local time. Well, there goes Esteban Guerrieri, lights ablaze on that Honda NSX, run by the JAS team, who've got the car here at Monza, looking for prospective customers who might want to buy it and run it in the championship. And certainly on the strength of yesterday's race, it is a competitive proposition indeed, but so is the car you're looking at. Andrea Montemini at the wheel of the RS Racing Ferrari 488, which started from pole position yesterday, qualified on pole by his teammate Daniele Diamato with a lap time of 1 minute 46.780. So that gives you a good idea of the benchmark times for today's sessions. Do follow us on social media. You've just seen the hashtags there. We're at EF_Open on Twitter. And Montemini slowing an awful lot there. In fact, coming almost to a stop on the approach to the Variante della Roggia before setting off again. We have got a packed field of 27 cars and less than half an hour for them to all get their qualifying laps in. So they are pretty much all wanting to press on with business. In fact, Giuseppe Cipriani has already made his way around to the start-finish area and is pressing on with qualifying his car. As you can see, a diverse field of cars in action at Monza this weekend. There are yesterday's race winners, the teammates rather of yesterday's race winners. That is the Teo Martin BMW M6 of Juan Cruz Alvarez, who's at the wheel, and will start the race before handing over to Lorenzo Bero de Vega. A competitive entry, absolutely, although struck by problems at the beginning of yesterday's race, which really dropped the number 3 car you can see out of contention. That is the car that won the race, being qualified today by Fran Rueda, who did the second stint yesterday, after taking over from teammate Andreas Saravia, who drove an excellent opening stint, battling his way through the traffic and teeing Rueda up nicely for a run towards the flag, which has put them in a 3-way tie at the top of the championship standings with Michael Mack. There goes Alessandro Pierre Guidi, the teammate of Michael Mack, so that was quite neatly timed in the Ferrari 488. Pierre Guidi doing the qualifying honours today in that car. And there is the rundown of the Drivers' Championship standings. As you can see, Saravia, Rueda and Mack all tied on 92 points. Saravia and Rueda ahead by dint of finishing positions, but with 3 races left for these cars, it's all tied at the top of the Drivers' Championship standings. That is going to be very exciting indeed. Alessandro Pierre Guidi, who's not done all the races in that car with his teammate Michael Mack, is 16 points down in 3rd place. Then we have Giovanni Venturini and Hero and Mull, but Venturini and Mull out of luck in yesterday's race. Their Lamborghini Huracan, run by Imperiale Racing, struck by problems, it seemed, after both of the first 2 safety car periods, and that ultimately proving terminal and forcing them out early in proceedings. Well, we've got the first of the lap times coming in, and it's the Teo Martin BMWs to the fore at the moment. Juan Cruz Alvarez on a 1:49.172 ahead of Fran Rueda on a 1:49.531, and then it's the Honda with Esteban Guerrieri at the wheel in 3rd position with a 1:50.087. But those lap times around 2 to 2.5 seconds off yesterday's benchmark, so we're still expecting to see a fair amount of improvement there. Yesterday, it really did come down to an exciting shootout between Daniele Diamato and Giovanni Venturini for pole position, and it was the Ferrari that won out. There is Alessandro Pierguidi in one of the Luzic Ferraris, which must also be considered a contender for pole position as well. Alberto De Falco has gone fastest in the target racing Lamborghini Huracan, so move those to the top of the times. We've only had one pole position for a Lamborghini so far this season, and that was way back at the opening round at Estoril when the Topi Sauri Giuseppe Cipriani Lamborghini Huracan started from pole position, the Daiko Lazarus car. Other than that, the Huracan has proved, and here's another one, the wheel with Alberto De Falco at the wheel. The Huracan has proved very, very competitive in race trim. The one-lap speed perhaps not quite there, although you must keep in mind Venturini, one of the Huracans, was only 0.05 of a second off pole position yesterday, so we're talking about extremely fine margins indeed. And sure enough, it is a Huracan now at the top of the time, because Rick Breukers has just gone fastest in the Imperiale Racing Lamborghini with a 1:47.986, 0.6 of a second quicker than anyone at the moment. The lap time's improving very quickly indeed, and sure enough, just as I'm saying that, Esteban Guerrieri goes up to second in the Honda with a 1:48.304. But we are watching De Falco in his Lamborghini, and currently not on course to improve massively, but Raffaele Gianmaria has gone quickest by 0.08 of a second in another of the Imperiale Racing Lamborghini Huracans. Gianmaria top with a 1:47.906. Oh, and very, very wide at the final corner there for De Falco. I can't imagine he's going to get away with that from a point of view of track limits, and nor, for that matter, has David Perel, who's just had his 1:48.630 deleted in the Rinaldi Racing Ferrari 488. Again, for a track limits violation at the Parabolica. We have seen a lot of those all weekend long, and not just in the International GT Open. It's a persistent problem at Monza. Meanwhile, in the pits, we have one of the Mercedes receiving service. That is Marcello Hahn. We just saw his son Christian qualifying in the International GT Open. Marcello Hahn sharing his car with Alan Hellmeister, who we saw have a spin yesterday in qualifying. In fact, spun into the barriers in qualifying yesterday and brought out the red flags temporarily. So that was the DriveX School Mercedes SLS AMG. Now there is the current pole sitter, Rick Breukers, at the wheel of the Imperiale Racing Lamborghini that's just gone quickest of all with a 1:47.490. So the lap time's continuing to fall quickly here at Monza. At this rate, we are going to end up, I think, a fair bit quicker than we were yesterday. So it's Breukers provisionally on pole position, and in fact it's provisionally a 1-2 for the Imperiale Racing Lamborghinis, because Raffaele Gianmaria is still in second place. Up into third, though, goes Bradley Ellis in the Optum Motorsport Audi R8. That car certainly deserving a good finish after yesterday's disappointment when it went out in a collision down at the Ascari chicane. And Ellis not able to get to the wheel yesterday because the car was qualified and raced by Oliver Wilkinson, so that was a particularly disappointment for him. But they're on course for a good result at the moment. Up in third ahead of Esteban Guerrieri, and Perel, having lost that time earlier on because of track limits, has recovered to fifth in the qualifying session at the moment. Stefano Gattuso in the Ombra Racing Lamborghini goes sixth fastest. And we saw the Ombra car consistently up towards the sharp end in the race yesterday, and there it is just behind the Teo Martin BMW piloted by Juan Cruz Alvarez, so they've been getting a nice little tow there, and that has indeed helped him up into second position. Personal improvements in all three sectors, but Rick Breukers has continued to improve on his lap time, fastest of all in the final sector. He's now down to a 1:47.317, so we're seeing a serious bid for pole position here from the Imperiale Racing team. Gattuso down to second. Montemini gets the Ferrari up into third place, and here's Guerrieri showing what the Honda can do. Seventh at the moment, and not got the benefit of a tow from anyone right now, but personal bests in the first two sectors. So what's Guerrieri got in the Honda towards the end of the lap? I do love the matte black livery with the red touches on the NSX GT3. And it's a nice smooth line through the Parabolica. No concerns as far as track limits are relevant. Guerrieri drives towards the line. It's another improvement for him. Personal best in the final sector. That moves him to third place, 1:47.701, just under 0.4 of a second off the pace set by Rick Breukers. Here comes Bradley Ellis in the Audi, down to 7th at the moment, but fastest of all through the first sector of the lap. Let's see how he closes the lap. Again, drives well off the Parabolica, heads towards the finish line, and it goes quickest of all for Ellis. A fantastic lap, 0.02 of a second quicker than Rick Breukers, a 1:47.296, and braking desperately late for the Rettifilo as he opens the next lap. But that is a great start for Ellis. The Optimum Motorsport car provisionally on pole position, and we are now just half a second off the quickest time that we saw yesterday. Yesterday's pole position time, a 1:46.780. The car's getting ever closer to that benchmark, and I think that Ellis has backed off a little bit on this lap. Let the give the car a breather, get the tyres, temperatures under control a little bit, and build up ready for another one. Maybe just close a little bit on that car in front if possible to gain a little bit more from the slipstream. Who's improving at the moment? David Perel has gone up to 4th place in the Rinaldi Racing Ferrari. That moves Guerrieri down to 5th in the Honda, ahead of Montemini and Raffaele Giammaria. But Alessandro Pierguidi has got an improvement in his Ferrari and goes just 0.003 of a second slower than Bradley Ellis. So move Pierguidi up into 2nd place in the Luzic Ferrari. We pick up the beginning of his next lap. But Pierguidi was fastest of all in the 2nd and 3rd sectors, and a personal best in the 1st sector on course to that lap time. Andrea Montemini is improving. He's personal best in the 1st sector in the RS Racing Ferrari, currently 7th quickest. And a little bit further down the order, Thomas Jaeger is improving his time in the Lechner Racing Mercedes SLS AMG as well. And that looked like Montemini towards the end of his lap. He's actually lost a bit of time in the middle sector, but we'll still see if that's good enough for an improvement. He only needs to find 0.006 of a second to move up 1 place. He slips down into 8th position due to improvements in front of him, but Montemini driving towards the line at the moment. Or has he decided to head to the pits? We'll find out in a second, but in the meantime, no, he's not. He's out on track, and he is heading towards the line, but it isn't an improvement. He stays in 8th position. So yesterday's pole sitter, currently having to settle for 8th place, almost a full second slower than it was yesterday, that car. Alessandro Pierguidi, meanwhile, in 2nd place, only needs to find 0.003 of a second to take pole position. He's quickest of all in the middle of the lap after going personal best in the 1st sector, so this is looking strong indeed, and he's got a nice slipstream from the car ahead as he heads towards the line. I think that couldn't have worked out better for him. Let's see what he's got. Sure enough, it is a 1:47.133, 0.163 seconds quicker. And he pulls out of the slipstream of the Lamborghini ahead. That's Nicolas Costa, who appears to have a little bit of loose trim on the front left of his car. Nicolas Costa currently 15th, and inadvertently serving to help Alessandro Pierguidi to that pole position by giving him a nice tow out of the final corner in the Vincenzo Sospiri Racing Lamborghini Huracan. Fran Rueda, meanwhile, has done the fastest time of anybody in the final sector to move up to 6th place, just 0.002 of a second slower than the sister Teo Martin BMW M6 of his teammate Juan Cruz Alvarez. The Ombra Racing Lamborghini Huracan has had a bit of an off down at Ascari. Stefano Gattuso keeping it straight and doing his best to limit the damage to the underside of the car, and kicking up an enormous cloud of dust from the gravel trap as he does so, and rejoining carefully to, I think, stay out of the way of the Andrea Montemini Ferrari, which incidentally has now slipped down into 10th position, but only temporarily, because it's a big improvement from Montemini to move up to 4th place on a 1:47.327, so gets within 0.2 of a second of pole position time. That is rather more like it from the RS Racing Ferrari, more of what we're expecting to see for them as we move past the halfway point in this qualifying session. is Fran Rueda, winner in yesterday's race, currently on course to start from 9th place. We've had a time disallowed, and it's Montemini for track limits at the Parabolica, and we saw Montemini move up from 11th to 4th with that previous lap time, so a setback then for the RS Racing Ferrari. His time is about to be struck from the timing screens. That's going to move Jeroen Mul back up into 4th position. And sure enough, there goes Montemini from the timing screens. He is relegated down to 11th place. And once again, a driver getting dinged for track limits at the Parabolica. Jeroen Mul in the Imperiale Racing Lamborghini Huracan then up into 4th. Here comes Fran Rueda, and he now goes up into 4th. Fastest of all in the final sector. That BMW M6 consistently strong on the run from Ascari through the Parabolica and down towards the start-finish straight. That served him very nicely indeed, and he's just 0.2 of a second off pole position now. Pierre Guidi, with the great run through the twisty stuff in the Ferrari and the nice slipstream down the final sector, has set a time that so far no one is able to get within 0.16 of a second of. Behind that battle for second place, currently led by Bradley Ellis in the Audi. It is very, very close indeed. Rick Broekers just 0.02 of a second slower, and then Rueda another 0.05 off that. And the gap's incredibly fine further down in the field as well. Thomas Jaeger just, and actually is the times update now, we had another improvement. That changes that one because Jeroen Mul has improved his time and moved up into 5th position. But just to put that into perspective now, the gap between 2nd on the grid and 5th on the grid is just 1/10th of a second. 4 cars covered by 1/10 of a second. That is extraordinarily close. And it really does underline why the drivers are at such pains to try and grab a slipstream wherever they can, because there is so much of an advantage potentially to be gained from running in the disturbed air of a car in front. But most of the cars aren't running at all at the moment. We have only got 5 cars on track at the moment, and this is one of them, Fran Rueda. But even without the benefit of the slipstream, he's able to find a substantial improvement, and again, quickest of all through the final sector as he goes to 2nd, 0.15 of a second off Alessandro Pierre Guidi. So the BMW M6 undoubtedly a contender for pole position as well. Fine run by the Teo Martin driver. Another driver getting dinged for track limits is Jeroen Mul, who, as I mentioned, had just moved up into 5th position. His lap time being deleted, so that's going to move him down. Actually, it's not, because the lap time that he's had deleted is a 1:47.405. His next best lap time, which is 1/10 of a second slower than that, and no one was any quicker, so he will stay in 5th position. So no change there. So as things stand, with 11 minutes left to run, and most of the cars currently in the pits popping on a fresh set of tyres as Rueda's car hits the decks approaching Lesmo 2 and kicks up a little shower of sparks. We have Alessandro Pierre Guidi, fastest of all for Ferrari, the Luzic Racing car, on course for pole position at the moment, but he's only 0.15 of a second quicker than Fran Rueda. The BMW, we think, heading towards the pits at the moment for a fresh set of boots. Bradley Ellis is 3rd quickest in the Optimum Motorsport Audi R8. 4th is Rick Broekers in the Imperiale Racing Lamborghini Huracan. And then we find Jeroen Mul, his teammate, in 5th position after that time deletion. Thomas Jaeger in the Lechner Racing Mercedes SLS AMG is 6th quickest. Stefano Gattuso for Ombra Racing in the Lamborghini Huracan is in 7th. Juan Cruz Alvarez for Teo Martin in the BMW M6 is in 8th position. David Perel for Rinaldi Racing in the Ferrari 488, currently 9th. And the Honda NSX in the hands of Esteban Guerrieri completes the top 10. But Andrea Montemini at the moment, yesterday's co-pole sitter with Daniele Diamato in the Ferrari 488 run by RS Racing, only 11th following a time deletion for running wide at the Parabolica. Definitely a driver to keep an eye on as the final stages of qualifying unfold, because it's pretty clear he's capable of being in the fight. Well, potentially for pole position, certainly for around about the 2nd or 3rd rows. We'll see what he's able to pull out. But the drivers are heading back onto the track now. leaving the pits with fresh tyres, final tweaks to the suspension, final tweaks to the handling, and last efforts now to set an improved time and claim the best possible spot on the grid for this afternoon's race. Heading towards us now comes the Mercedes SLS AMG with Thomas Jaeger at the wheel, the Lechner racing car. He is currently in 6th on a 1:47.537, needing to find just over 0.4 of a second to get up onto pole position. But he's not on a flying lap at the moment because most of the drivers are just heading round to begin their laps. We've got yellow flags at turn 2, which is the second part of the Rettifilio chicane. And we may see in a moment what has happened there. It's one of the Teo Martin cars. It's Guillaume Salas, who's come to a stop with, it looks like, the left rear wheel not properly attached, fouling the wheel arch and come to a stop. I think that car's going to have to be pulled out of the way, and that's going to bring an end to his qualifying effort. Salas currently 13th on the grid. That is a big step back for him, and we got a red flag because we need to pull that car out of the way. So that is unfortunate indeed. We had a red flag in yesterday's qualifying session as well when Alan Hellmeister spun the SPS Automotive Mercedes SLS AMG, the Mercedes SLS AMG of Drivex School into the barrier at the Ascari chicane. That was recovered quite quickly, and I tend to think that the same is going to be the case of the Guillaume Salas car that has come to a stop down at the Rettifilio because, well, we've certainly seen the Monza Marshals doing extremely rapid work so far this weekend in this and in other series. The disruptions have largely been kept to an absolute minimum, and that's to their credit. And in this case, we've only got to pull one car out of the way that has got a loose left rear wheel. So hopefully that can be done without too much delay to today's qualifying session. As you can see, the clock freezes with 8 minutes and 27 seconds left. And really, if you're going to have to red flag a qualifying session, it is always preferable to do it when there aren't really any drivers out setting representative times, because it means no one is really that much disadvantaged, and hopefully that proves to be the case here. There will have been a couple of drivers out, put a little bit of heat through their set of tyres, but it's probably not going to cause any significant problems for anybody other than the unfortunate Guillaume Salas, who may well just have been victim of a loose wheel nut there on his departure from the pits. So Guillaume Salas was in 13th position, unlikely to be able to improve, unlikely to be able to set any further times. So we wait to see whether any of his rivals are going to be able to take advantage of that. Among those behind him, immediately in 14th position, is Nicholas Nielsen in the Lusic Racing Ferrari, the new entry for this weekend for him and Eddie Cheever III, son of former Formula One driver and Indianapolis 500 winner Eddie Cheever. They're in 14th position at the moment and had a decent run in yesterday's race as well. In fact, appeared to make way for the sister car being driven by Alessandro Pierguidi at the time in the closing stages of the race, and went on to take a strong 6th place in their first meeting. So they may well be poised to take advantage of that one. The remaining cars heading in towards the pits. The recovery effort already going on down at the Rettifilio chicane, and it may well be that moments after the last of the cars have arrived in the pits, we're ready to get things going again. Let's hope it certainly turns out that way. Well, as the drivers head in towards the pits, it's worth mentioning that being launched this weekend is a new championship from the GT Open Series, the GT Open Cup Championship, which is going to launch next year. And it's eligible for a range of sports cars and should offer a considerable cost reduction on running GT machinery. That's going to kick off at the Paul Ricard circuit towards the end of April. They've got a 6-round calendar including visits to the Hockenheimring, Spa-Francorchamps, Silverstone, Barcelona, and will return here to Monza for their season finale next year in October. And definitely worth checking out their website. Find out some more about this new championship on www.gtopencup.net. The coverage will be streamed live online, and each race weekend will feature 2 races of 55 minutes in duration, plus practice and qualifying for the 2 driver cars. So that's the new GT Open Cup Europe Championship launching in 2019. There is the car of Guillaume Salas being recovered onto the back of the truck, and sure enough, the left rear wheel sold separately. The fans taking advantage of the opportunity to update their profile statuses. And we should be able to get this one going again fairly soon. That is the Bradley Ellis Audi R8 LMS, currently in 3rd position, and Optima Motorsport, so far their Sunday is looking rather more promising than their Saturday did. It looks like he's picked up a bit of damage to that left wing mirror at some point. But currently on a 147.296, 1600ths of a second off the pole sitter. There are the cars sitting in the garage. You can see the trio of distinctive green Imperiale Racing Lamborghinis, and 2 of the 3 remaining Teo Martin BMWs in front of them. The 3rd one, of course, being the car that has caused the delay in the session. It's the Umbra Racing Lamborghini on the right-hand side of your screen that's been left with its hazard lights flashing, making sure everyone sees it. The pit lane is going to open at 10:08, which is just less than 1 minute. So we have indeed kept this disruption down to a minimum. Thanks very much to the Monza marshals down at the Rettifilo chicane. That must be one of the busier places on the International Motorsport calendar to be a marshal, because we often see action down at the first chicane. We certainly saw a fair bit of it in yesterday's International GT Open race, and plenty in the Euro Formula Open race as well. I suppose if you fancy chances of picking up a bit of loose carbon fibre, it's a good place to stand. Now we have cars heading towards the pit lane exit as the pit lane prepares to open, and we will get the qualifying session for the 2nd race for the International GT Open cars this weekend at Monza underway. This, of course, the penultimate race weekend of the year for these drivers, before we head off to the season finale at the Circuit de Catalunya, which will be towards the end of October, penultimate weekend in October. If you fancy coming to see these cars in action for the final time in 2018 and getting a bit of Spanish sunshine while you do so, and checking out Barcelona, mark that one on your calendar. And of course, the 2019 calendar for this championship has just been announced as well. We're going to be going to the Hockenheimring next year in a new addition to the calendar. You can find that all online. There's still details of one additional race for the Euro Formula cars yet to be confirmed. But the International GT Open will be racing entirely on Formula 1 grade circuits next year, which is going to be a fantastic change for the championship. So do check out the details of that online as well, and via our social media accounts. Now, as you can see, the serious business is getting underway once again. We have already got 20 cars heading out on track, so no one really wasting any time in getting going again. We're just waiting for some of the leading drivers to head out the pits. Fran Rueda, 2nd fastest, has rejoined the track, looking to find the 16,000ths of a second he needs that could put his car on pole position, which would be an ideal situation for the driver who shared victory in yesterday's race with his teammate Andres Saravia. Esteban Guerrieri in the Honda trying to find a little bit of space, but finds himself stuck behind another of the Lamborghinis. Now, as we come towards the end of the lap, we have, as usual, drivers backing off to find space, drivers weaving to get heat into their tyres. It can all get a little bit sketchy as they head towards the Parabolica, but once they accelerate out of it, they will be off to start their flying laps, and Guerrieri is going to begin his tucked up in the slipstream of another car. He's going to be able to pop out and overtake it on the run down towards the Rettifilio. This is rather reminiscent of Fernando Alonso and Kevin Magnussen, the qualifying session for the Formula One race a couple of weeks ago. That didn't end particularly well, but Guerrieri gets the space to get on the brakes down towards the first corner, and with the benefit of the slipstream from Bernard Deles in his Lamborghini, that will have helped potentially Guerrieri off to a better first sector time. Let's see what the verdict is on the timing screens. He should be heading up towards the end of the first sector shortly. We've already got a few drivers posting personal bests, including Giuseppe Cipriani down in 21st. He is improving. Guerrieri, in fact, hasn't with that first effort. He's on a 34.2 for the first sector, as is Andrea Montemini, who is trying to make his way up in that Ferrari. So that's another lap time to keep a close eye on. We've got everybody out on track apart from Miguel Ramos, who's not rejoined the action yet, and of course Guillaume Salas, whose car has been towed away. So a busy track for the final 5 minutes of action. And is Alessandro Pierguidi going to be able to hold on to that provisional pole position for the Luzic Racing Ferrari? Fran Rueda is certainly within striking distance for Teo Martin. We've got a lot of other quick cars on track as well. And you always have that slightly random factor of Monza, of whoever can just grab the best available slipstream can suddenly pop up into an unexpected place. Here comes the Ombra Racing Lamborghini with Stefano Gattuso at the wheel, accelerating out of the final corner. Gattuso currently in 7th position, not on course to improve on this lap. And the time at the line for Gattuso with a personal best in the final sector is a 1:47.7, so that is 2/10 off his best so far. We are starting to see a few more improving lap times now from the drivers as they get their tyres up to temperature, including Fran Rueda, who does a personal best in the middle sector as he makes his bid for pole position. Esteban Guerrieri in the Honda currently quickest of all through the speed trap, hitting 282.7. Well, we saw that massive slipstream he had when he opened his previous lap. He wasn't able to improve on 10th position with it in the end. And Michele Rugolo getting a warning for track limits in his Luzic Racing Ferrari. Here come the Lamborghinis. Oh, and the Guerrieri in the Honda hitting the curbs hard at the exit of the Della Roja. Guerrieri in the Honda this time by fastest of all through the first sector. He's got a couple of Lamborghinis in front of him, but he's on course for a significant improvement here. Nicholas Nielsen in the Ferrari goes up into 3rd position. That is a great run from the Luzic Racing car, just over a 1/10 of a second slow. But Jeroen Mull now goes fastest of all with a 1:47.085. To provisionally take pole position with just a few laps to go in the Imperiale Racing Lamborghini Huracan. I can hear the track outside announcer at Monza giving that one the full pole position shout, but we've still got a few minutes left before we decide who's actually going to start from pole. It could well be Jeroen Mull, but he's only 48 thousandths of a second quicker than Alessandro Pierguidi, and Fran Rueda not far behind either. And Guerrieri not looking too solid on the turn-in at the Parabolica there, but he was quick early on in the lap. Let's see what he's got as he drives towards the line. He has got a little bit of a slipstream. That helps him up to 7th position, so 1:47.403. But Jeroen Mull, meanwhile, having gone quickest of all, has now gone fastest of all through the first sector as well. So he could be on course to move the benchmark even further ahead, and we join the Imperiale Racing Lamborghini mid-lap as he flies down through the slight kink at the Seraglio underneath the banked oval, the old course that they haven't run for decades and decades, and he tackles the first curb with great gusto as he comes through the Ascari chicane, gives the second one a lot of respect, just clips the third, and now he's on the very long, fast run towards the Parabolica, where they are on the brakes only briefly for the very, very quick right-hander, which opens out. And here he comes out of it, have to give respect to the track limits at the exit of the corner. certainly safe to the right of that extra curb that was installed here. He drives towards the line. Fran Rueda has just gone quickest of all, but Mull takes it back again with a 1:46.963. The first driver under 1:47 today, and 49 thousandths of a second quicker than Fran Rueda. So we've got a fantastic shootout for pole position on our hands here. 1.5 minutes to go. Jeroen Mull provisionally on pole position for Imperiale Racing in his Lamborghini Huracan. It's Teo Martin second with Fran Rueda, and then Alessandro Pierre Guidi in the Ferrari is third quickest for Luzic Racing. Rick Breukers in another of the Imperiale Racing Lamborghinis is fourth. Nicholas Nielsen in another Luzic Racing Ferrari is fifth, and Bradley Ellis in the sole Audi in the field for Optimum Motorsport is now down to sixth position. Jeroen Mull once again quickest of all through the first sector. Potentially going to post a bit of an improvement, but Fran Rueda is fastest of all through the second sector now. All morning long, we've seen Rueda be quickest of all through this, the final part of the lap, the run through Ascari, and then this long drag towards the Parabolica. And if he can do it again here, he may well take that pole position back. But Alessandro Pierre Guidi is even quicker through the middle sector. He took almost a 1/10 of a second off Rueda there. He was quite a lot quicker in the first sector too. So Pierre Guidi, whatever Rueda is about to do, Pierre Guidi might be about to beat it. But let's keep an eye on Rueda as he accelerates out of the Parabolica towards the start-finish line. He's going to have time for one more lap. After this one, he goes quickest, 1:46.621, 0.3 of a second. That was a monster run through the final sector for Fran Rueda. Fantastic effort from him. But what has Alessandro Pierre Guidi got in the final sector? He only goes second. It's a 1:46.665, just 44 thousandths of a second. It was a great lap by Pierre Guidi, but it was a stonking final sector for Fran Rueda, which puts yesterday's race winner provisionally on pole position. Jeroen Mull, having been quickest in the first sector, had a very bad run through the middle part of the lap. He stays third. Now, has Rueda kept his foot in to open another lap? Does he even need to? Because at the moment he is provisionally on pole position. Is there anyone left out there who can complete a quicker lap time? Rick Breukers is not quicker in the first sector in his Lamborghini. Andrea Montemini has moved up into fifth place. He's done a personal best through the first sector. He's just coming through the last sector now, so we'll see if there's any further improvement to come from him. Here is Rueda driving towards the line to put his car on pole position. Or so we think, unless there's going to be a late twist in the tail at Monza. Keeping an eye on that lap time from Andrea Montemini. Perel has improved into seventh place. In the Irish Racing Ferrari, it's not an improvement from Andrea Montemini. He stays fifth, and that, I believe, means this man, Fran Rueda, will start this afternoon's race from pole position. A 1:46.621 in the Teo Martin BMW. And who was this spinning? It's the Ombra Racing Lamborghini that gyrated in the Parabolica and didn't make it all the way to the barrier. No, it didn't. Stefano Gattuso with great aplomb, gunning the engine and accelerating back out of the runoff area. And there was, I think that's Rick Breukers in the other Imperiale Racing Lamborghini that went off. Apologies, no, that was Jeroen Mull. That was what went wrong with Jeroen Mull in the middle part of the lap then. That was why he missed out on his chance for pole position. Well, despite a brief interruption to proceedings, what a thrilling conclusion to qualifying for the second race for the International GT Open this weekend. And hugs for Fran Rueda and his team as he emerges from the car after an absolutely first-rate effort. That car started mid-pack yesterday, but was able to fight its way through to the front to take pole position, through to the front to take the victory. And today, with the advantage of starting from pole position, could be an even better day for the duo that tied at the top of the point standings with their victory yesterday. So it's Fran Rueda who will start from pole position with a lap of 1:46.621 for Teo Martin in their BMW, just a few hundredths quicker than Pierre Guidi for the Luzic Racing team. Imperiale Racing lockout row 2 with their Lamborghini Huracans. Andrea Montemini is 5th for RS Racing. The second Lusick Racing car will start 6th with Nicholas Nielsen at the wheel. Another Ferrari for Rinaldi Racing, 7th, David Perrell. Target Racing's Lamborghini Huracan with Alberto De Falco at the wheel will start 8th. Bradley Ellis slipped to 9th for Optimum Motorsport in his Audi R8. And Lechner Racing as Thomas Jäger in the Mercedes will start from 10th position. Well, that was a thrilling qualifying session and sets us up very nicely indeed for what I'm sure will be a very exciting race. The race rolling start is at 2:15 this afternoon, European time. So do join us then for what will be, I'm sure, a very exciting continuation of the International GT Open from Monza. From me, Keith Collentine, thank you very much for joining us today. We'll see you in a few hours' time.
Front rider, after winning yesterday's race,